Happy Victory Monday, Steelers fans. On our first video today on Steelers Talk, we're going to be talking quarterbacks here. So I watched the film last night on this Week 6 win versus the Las Vegas Raiders. I took a really hard look at Justin Fields and how he played in this football game. I've got some notes that I want to share, and then we'll go into the discussion here of whether the Steelers should stick with Justin Fields at QB1 or whether they should go to Russell Wilson as they prepare to take on the New York Jets on Sunday Night Football. And my answer may surprise you, so make sure you guys stick around. But before we get into the content today, we are going live here on Steelers Talk later today at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be talking about the latest news and rumors. If anything comes up about Davante Adams, we'll cover that as well. We got a bunch of great Steelers content to get your week started right here on Steelers Talk, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to never miss a live show and never miss any of our free Steelers videos right here on YouTube. So first, man, let's talk about Justin Fields and how he played yesterday and how he has played this season and how he has played specifically these last 2 weeks. But we can look at his overall stats here, and they actually look pretty decent, all right? When you look at just the base numbers through the first 6 games of the year, a 66.3 completion percentage is respectable. The 222.8 total yards per game is certainly respectable as well. And then you look at the touchdown to turnover ratio right now. That looks like Justin Fields is really doing a great job protecting the football. He has 5 rushing touchdowns. There's no question that he has been a reliable weapon for the Steelers as a rushing threat in the red zone, and he's getting the ball into the end zone relatively consistently. Now you look at the last 2 games, all right, and you see the completion percentage has gone down dramatically these last 2 weeks to 56.8, which is not very good whatsoever. The total yards per game is under 200 yards, and yes, he does have those 4 touchdowns and no turnovers, but in my opinion, as we're going to talk about here, I actually think Justin has gotten pretty lucky in terms of the turnovers and the lack of turnovers over these last 2 weeks, and he's actually put the ball in harm's way a little bit here. But you look at the stats yesterday, 14 of 24 for 145 yards passing, 2 total touchdowns, both of them on the ground for 59 total yards on 11 carries, picked up a number of first downs with his legs, and there were certain points where he did elevate this offense with his playmaking ability that Russell Wilson just simply cannot do. So my notes here, based on the film that I watched last night, I counted 5 times where Justin Fields had an incompletion where I considered it a quote-unquote wide miss, where it's not even close to his wide receiver, or it significantly hinders the receiver's ability to make a catch or even score a touchdown. There was one in particular where George Pickens was streaking wide open to the end zone, and Fields has a clean pocket off of play action. He throws it down the field, and he severely underthrows him, and George has to go down and make kind of an acrobatic catch just to secure the catch within the 5-yard line instead of just an easy touchdown. So you certainly see the accuracy issues pop up on film with Justin every single game at some point, but I do think that there are certain positives that counteract that. We'll talk about that here in a second. But also, in just yesterday's game alone, 4 plays where I thought Justin Fields put the ball in harm's way. All right, and we'll go into specifics here in just a second, but, I mean, none of these ended up being turnovers. So on the stat sheet and in the box score, it says 0 turnovers. You're like, oh, Justin protected the football, great. Well, when you watch the film, he actually put the ball in harm's way a total of 4 times yesterday, and he was lucky to kind of get bailed out with no turnovers as a result of that. And you just look at the last 2 games. He has had 6 turnover-worthy decisions in these last 2 games. 4 of them coming against the Raiders, 2 of them coming against the Cowboys, and we can kind of break down these specifically here. He's had 2 recovered fumbles, okay, so he had the fumble against Dallas, and then he also had a backwards pass against to Jaylen Warren that ended up hitting the turf, and if Jaylen doesn't jump on top of it, that ends up being a huge fumble in the red zone, by the way. So 2 recovered fumbles from Justin Fields, then 2 dropped interceptions. He had a dropped interception on a 2-point conversion against the Raiders, then he had a dropped interception against the Cowboys where he makes a terrible decision to throw the ball to Van Jefferson against cover 2. Then he had 1 interception negated by penalty that happened in the Raiders game yesterday. There was a roughing the passer call which negated a terrible decision on an interception. And then he had 1 throw yesterday where, lucky for him, it was an inaccurate pass. He severely underthrew his receiver, because if he would have thrown it accurately, it might have been a game-changing pick 6 on the boundary there. So Fields has gotten pretty lucky here these last 2 games, in terms of putting the ball in harm's way and kind of getting bailed out of these certain situations by different circumstances. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. That's definitely been a negative to Justin Fields' game these past 2 weeks. However, I did count 6 plays in this football game against the Raiders where he elevated the team. 5 rushing plays and 1 throw yesterday where he is making a play outside of structure for a big gain that plain and simply Russell Wilson at this point in his career I don't think was capable of making. So like he has that 1 throw to Calvin Austin III where he's rolling out to his left, flips his hips and delivers a dot to him on the run. I mean, that is just an unbelievable throw. And I just think that, he can certainly elevate this offense. And, you can certainly make an argument that that offsets some of the poor accuracy that we have seen from him on film. Then I also think, guys, that all 3 of the sacks yesterday on Fields were not on him. I blame that on the play call. I blame that on coverage, or I blame that on the offensive line. I don't think any of the sacks yesterday were on Justin Fields holding the ball for too long. Then we get to George Pickens here. 2 drops yesterday. Those were the only 2 bad drops I saw on film. Should have had a touchdown later in the game, and then there was one earlier in the game on a 3rd down he should have caught as well. And then also delay of game penalties. We had 2 of them yesterday, and those are on the quarterback, guys. Justin Fields needs to make sure this team is getting out there, that they're ready to snap the football before that play clock strikes 0. And, yesterday he struggled with that just a little bit. So those are some 6 noteworthy things that I noticed on his film yesterday. But overall, man, I thought that it wasn't a stellar game from Fields by any stretch of the imagination, especially when you factor in the turnover-worthy decisions that he had. But also, he wasn't a complete train wreck. He did have 2 touchdowns. If George Pickens catches that last one in the end zone, he would have had 3 touchdowns. And he did elevate the offense at certain points in the game. So very hot and cold for Justin Fields this week. And he's been pretty hot and cold these past 2 weeks, if we're being honest about how this quarterback is playing right now. So let me know down there in the comments section, what grade would you give Fields for yesterday's performance? Give me an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a grade for Justin Fields' performance against the Raiders. This might surprise some people, but I'm actually going to give him a B-. I thought the decision-making was spotty at times. The accuracy on certain throws was bad, but he did elevate the offense quite a bit. He did get into the end zone. He was very efficient in the red zone. So it wasn't a terrible performance from Justin Fields by any stretch of the imagination, but I can't sit up here and say that he played necessarily a stellar football game because that just wasn't the case. So now let's talk a little bit here about the discussion that's going to be raging on Steelers Twitter. It already is raging on Steelers Twitter. Do the Steelers stick with Justin Fields after a 4-2 start with him at quarterback, or do you go to Russell Wilson after 2 kind of up and down performances, let's call it, for Justin Fields under center? Man, I really do understand the arguments for both sides, all right? And let's break down those arguments for both sides, because I like to present both sides of an argument here on this show, guys, and I try to be fair to both sides of an argument, and I kind of let you guys decide what you guys think on your own. So first, let's start with Justin Fields and the case to stick with him. First of all, Fields' rushing and playmaking ability is a difference maker for the Steelers offense, all right? There are certain plays that Russell Wilson just ain't making that Justin Fields is making. So if you want to say, oh, the offensive line stinks, the wide receivers aren't good enough, we need a playmaker at quarterback, completely understand that argument. Also, more reps and chemistry with the first-team offense. This goes all the way back to training camp, guys, where Justin Fields has gotten more reps with never mind. So before we get to that, let's talk here about Justin in the red zone, because he is an incredible weapon in the red zone, especially as a rusher, because, he's got 5 rushing touchdowns, and right now, Arthur Smith, certain concepts in the red zone aren't exactly working the way that they're supposed to be working. Some of the blocking stuff hasn't been great, but Justin Fields has bailed out some poor play calls this year with rushing touchdowns, and honestly, that was Kenny Pickett's biggest issue in Matt Canada's offense last year, was getting in the end zone. Fields is actually doing a pretty darn good job of getting in the end zone when they're in the red area. So now let's get into the chemistry with the ones here, because Russell Wilson, he missed a large part of training camp. He has missed a large part of the season now, and Justin Fields has been that guy getting a ton of these reps, both in practice and in game with this first-team offense. So do you really want to mess up that chemistry right now, especially if Russ is going to be rusty coming in off of that calf injury? There's certainly a case to be made that Justin is the guy with the chemistry. He's the one that's comfortable with the people on the field right now, and you should keep him on the field because of that. Also, the team is 4-2. They're tied for first place in the division with Justin Fields under center. You don't necessarily move off a quarterback that has won 4 out of 6 games. You could certainly make the hot hand argument when it comes to Justin Fields. You can certainly make an argument Fields isn't the reason why the Steelers are winning, but nonetheless, they are winning, so it's hard to take a quarterback out when you're sitting at 4-2. And then there's definitely no guarantee that Russell Wilson is any better, right? Russ could come in and he could be just as bad. He could take just as many sacks. He could just have just as many turnover-worthy plays. We don't know, and Justin might just be the better option. So, I mean, if there's no guarantee and if Justin is playing relatively well right now, it doesn't really make sense to go to Russ at this point if you want to look at it that way. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, I'm going to be making the case for Russell Wilson to start this week, and I'm going to let you guys kind of come to your own conclusion as to what the Steelers should do. But before we get into the rest of today's edition of Steelers Talk, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time, which is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for the sports, music, comedy, and theater in your area. And guys, we all know that experiencing a sporting event, especially a football game, whether it be college or pro, live is unlike anything you can get from watching the game on your couch. Lucky for you, Game Time Picks is a brand new feature from our friends at Game Time, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. All you have to do is download the free Game Time app, find an event you want to go see, you go into that event, you select Game Time Picks, the button at the top of the screen, and it's automatically going to filter through every ticket in their database to find you the best deals and the best prices, so you don't have to spend hours searching on a bunch of different ticketing apps to find the best ticket prices. What I love about Game Time is you get the lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event, all-in pricing so you don't get slapped with crazy fees at checkout, and flash deals so you can get even cheaper tickets the closer you wait to the start of your event. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So listen, man, making the case for Russ here, Russell Wilson was named the Week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So certainly at one point, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers felt like Russell Wilson would be the more efficient option. He'd be the better quarterback option. And after 2 kind of off weeks, I would say, for Justin Fields, where he's putting the ball in harm's way more, he's not completing as much of his passes as he did earlier in the season, it's certainly possible here that Pittsburgh still feels like Russell Wilson can be a very efficient quarterback option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So listen, man, if you want to give the original QB1 a shot here, I could certainly see that being an argument to go to Russell Wilson. Another case for Russell Wilson here is Fields has shown some of his weaknesses lately, and you just can't sit up here and say Justin Fields is just an awesome quarterback, elite quarterback talent that has been absolutely stellar these first 6 weeks. I just don't think that the film bears that out, and I think the film shows 4 specific weak spots in Fields' game. First, it's mental processing. He does take a while to get the ball out of his hand. Also, decision-making. We've seen that these last 2 weeks with 6 turnover-worthy decisions, in my opinion. Inconsistent accuracy is really a big issue for Justin Fields as well. We've seen that over the last couple of weeks with the decreased completion percentage. And then pocket presence has always been an issue for him. Some guys can really maneuver the pocket and find space to buy more time. Fields doesn't really do that, so if there's any sort of pressure that comes in, he doesn't really do a good job feeling that out and buying himself more time. So that's certainly 4 things that I think Fields needs to work on, and those are kind of weak spots in his game. And Russell Wilson, maybe, just maybe, can be more efficient in this offense. I do think he's got better pocket presence than Justin Fields does. It's not a huge chasm, but I do think it's better. I think that he is a lot more accurate than Justin Fields is, and I do think he is a slightly faster mental processor than Justin Fields is. So maybe, just maybe, Russell Wilson can come in here and he can get the ball out quicker, which is going to lead to less sacks. Maybe he does get the ball to open receivers, and there's certain times here where Justin Fields has open receivers in his line of vision, and he just decides not to throw the football, and that is Just absolutely frustrating when you watch it on film. Maybe Russell Wilson actually pulls the trigger on some of those passes. We just don't know, so I certainly understand the argument. If you want Russell Wilson to play, it's because you want better in-structure playmaking from your starting quarterback. Then the final case for Russ here is that Pittsburgh, you can make an argument, has underperformed to this point in the season. They are currently sitting at 4-2, but you can make a very solid argument right now, at least in my opinion, that you should be sitting at 6-0, and you have given up 2 games to 2 very beatable opponents in the Indianapolis Colts and the Dallas Cowboys that you should have beaten with Justin Fields as your starting quarterback. Now, if Russell Wilson is in there, do they win more games? Do they win less games? We will never know the answer to that question for sure, but it's certainly arguable here that the Steelers could have potentially had a better record with Russell Wilson, and it still stands right now that Pittsburgh has lost every single game where the defense has given up 20 or more points, so that definitely points to the reality at this point that Justin Fields, yes, the team is winning with Fields at quarterback, but they are not winning football games because of Justin Fields, at least not in my opinion. They're winning because their defense is the second best scoring defense in the National Football League. They're creating turnovers. They're creating very advantageous circumstances for Fields to work with. So right now, that's what I think is the catalyst for winning, not necessarily Justin Fields. Now you take a look here at the stat comparison between Russell Wilson in 2023 with the Denver Broncos and what Justin Fields has done so far with the Pittsburgh Steelers through the first 6 weeks. The completion percentage about the same. Total yards per game about the same, but Russ slightly higher. Touchdown percentage, same thing. Russ with the slight advantage. The sack percentage, very similar. Fields has the slight advantage there. And then the passer rating goes to Russell Wilson at this point in time. But overall, very similar stats. So honestly, man, I don't think that it's a big chasm between these two quarterbacks. I think that this team's going to be relatively the same caliber of football team with either one of these guys. Now, maybe Russell Wilson goes in there and he takes a ton of sacks and he's worse. It's certainly possible. But you just look at the stats from Russell Wilson from last year and Justin Fields to this year, it's not that big of a difference. So at this point, man, I actually don't think it's that big of an issue which quarterback the Steelers end up going with. And whatever Mike Tomlin decides to do this week, I'm going to be on board with it 100%. So who should start? Let me know down there in the comments section. Type RW if you want Russell Wilson, or type JF if you want Justin Fields. Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section, and then let me know why. Like I said, guys, I'm good with either quarterback at this point. I certainly see the arguments for both sides. I still think this team's a winning football team with either quarterback in there. I know the Fields people would probably disagree that this team's a winning football team with Russ at quarterback, but I just think Russ is a pretty decent starting quarterback in the league, so I think this team would be fine with him in there, but certainly cool with sticking with a quarterback that you're currently sitting 4-2 with at this point. I am a little bit curious to see what Russ can do and see if he can be more efficient within structure and all these different things. But like I said, man, Fields is 4-2. The Steelers are winning football games. If they want to stick with Justin Fields at this point, the sky certainly won't be falling. I'm perfectly fine giving him another week as QB1 if that's what Tomlin decides to do. And overall, guys, life is pretty good as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. You got an awesome defense. That's the second best scoring defense in the league. They're creating turnovers in big spots. The run game got going yesterday with Najee Harris. The future looks bright in that regard. The offensive line was actually really good in terms of run blocking yesterday. Then also you're tied for first in the AFC North with a really good Ravens team. And oh yeah, you might trade for Davante Adams this week. Look for those rumors to start ramping up here over the next 48 hours as well. And let me tell you guys, if we end up trading for Davante Adams, we are going to be partying it up right here on Steelers Talk. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button for breaking news coverage. Thank you guys for sticking with me here throughout this morning's edition of Steelers Talk. Reminder that we will be going live later today, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So don't forget to click that subscribe button. Until later today, here we go, Steelers.